What the fuck is up, Juggalos? This is the Murder Mayhem Show. I'm the host, Mitchell, and I recently caught Twisted's Generation Nightmare Tour. Yes, that is what we're going to be talking about today, Twisted's Generation Nightmare Tour, of course, in support of the Generation Nightmare album that just recently dropped. Might talk about that a little bit as well, because I have not said anything about that on this show since it came out, so I always like doing these concert recap episodes of the show because to me it's not just about the experience of seeing an awesome show and hearing some awesome music, but also just the whole event. So I knew I wanted to do VIP for this tour because since I've been doing this podcast and as the podcast becomes more and more popular, I see people say things about me more and more, which is fine. I can deal with that. If I couldn't, then I wouldn't even be doing the show. So I kind of knew what I was getting into. Be that as it may, it is a fact of the matter. Like, I see people say things about me sometimes on the internet that aren't totally true. And sometimes some of those things involve my opinions about Twisted or my opinions about anyone, about ICP. I see people misquote me all the time or take things out of context a lot, so I knew I wanted to do VIP for this Generation Nightmare Tour so that I could talk to Twisted personally and tell them, like, I do this podcast, and if you hear anything about me, something that I've said about you, positive or negative or otherwise, whatever, just anything, if you ever hear anything that I said about you, don't believe it unless you see it or hear it come out of my mouth. That was the message that I wanted to deliver to Twisted. So I knew that I wanted to do VIP. And by the way, I will be doing that exact same thing with ICP at their Fury tour. I haven't had a chance to catch that yet, but I do plan on catching at least one, if not two dates of the Fury tour. And I definitely will do a VIP for that as well and tell them the same thing. So that was my objective going into the Twisted VIP. And as I was looking through my CDs and stuff for something to have them sign, I saw that I've already had like most of my favorite Twisted CDs signed by them already at VIPs and such. So, you know, I already have my Most Tasteless signed. I already have my Freak Show, Heartbroken and Homicidal, Wicked, I think. I mean, I was looking through like all my favorite Twisted CDs and most of them were already signed. So I thought, okay, I'll bring a Lotus album. Then I can have that get signed by Twisted. And then I can take it to ICP on the Fury Tour, have them sign it too. So not only do I get to go into those VIPs with this message of like, don't believe anything you hear about me unless you hear it from me, but I also kind of send another sort of message by having everyone sign this Mud, Water, Air, and Blood CD. Then it's like I'm being very upfront with Twisted and ICP that I'm fucking down for everyone and I don't give a shit about any kind of politics or controversies or whatever. So I came in with that Mud, Water, Air, and Blood album. And before the VIP even started, I want to talk a little bit about somebody that I met outside the venue. Now, I don't want people to think that when they have a conversation with me that it's going to be talked about on the internet or something. So I'm going to keep details of personal conversations just very vague and brief and such, but I wanted to share this because I was just like making conversation with this woman outside of the venue, and she has a Most Tasteless vinyl to be signed. That's what she's going to have signed at the VIP. She was there early for the VIP like myself. And we got to talking about, you know, Juggalo shit or whatever. And she got to talking about how like she used to listen to Most Tasteless while she studied in school and all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. she says that she has an associate, like 2 associate's degrees and like a master's in microbiology, and going for her PhD and shit, and has all these other awesome stories and stuff. And there was a point in this conversation where I was like, why the fuck are you and the other juggalos like you not the representatives for this shit? Like, everyone thinks juggalos are a bunch of dumbass meth heads, white trash bullshit, you know? Here we have a real living, breathing juggalo out in the wild, juggalette, down for fucking decades, talking about getting a master's degree, or a fucking doctorate, already has a master's, going for a doctorate in microbiology and shit. It's like, these are the juggalos that people don't know about. So, if you're one of these people that thinks that all juggalos are scumbags, and if you're listening to me talk right now, you're probably not one of those people, because juggalos don't think this. But, you know, sometimes people say that all juggalos are dirtbags. Even some juggalos do say that, as a matter of fact. I see juggalos say that shit on Twitter about other juggalos, how juggalos are just dumbasses, whatever. Well, I gotta say this. It's just like any other group in life, where if you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of dirtbags, or if all the only juggalos you've ever met are dirtbags, you might be a dirtbag. Dirtbags hang out with other dirtbags. And, you know, maybe there's nothing wrong with being a dirtbag in some ways, but it's just like, god damn, the media has this fucked up. They think we're a bunch of rednecks. Meanwhile, here we have this woman totally fucking crushing it. So, shout out to that person. She may even be listening to this very episode. Who knows? But anyway, that struck me. So, we get to chit-chatting, waiting for the VIP. Eventually, they come out. I think Dustin actually may have been the one to come out of the venue and bring in the VIPs and stuff. So, there was a good handful of us, you know, normal VIP amount. A few dozen or whatever. And I managed, since I had got there several hours before, you know, 2 hours before the door opens, like a good boy, I was the first in line. So I know you want to hear about the meet and greet and stuff, and I'll tell you some shit, but I'm kind of in this place now where I'm thinking, like, I shouldn't really be talking about the VIPs on this podcast, because like I said earlier, just about talking to the juggalos in line and stuff, it's like, I don't want people to have this expectation that when they talk to me, it's going to be talked about on the internet, because that's not a real conversation anymore. If every time you talk to someone, you have to worry about whether or not your conversation is going to end up on his podcast, you're probably not going to be keeping it real. So I'm not really going to go into like full back and forth conversation that I had with Twisted at the VIP, but they expressed gratitude that I was there supporting them. And the thing that I like about Twisted VIPs is it's always a one-on-one thing. Like, I've gone to other VIPs before where sometimes they send people in as a group, but the Twisted ones I've always gone to have been one-on-one, and it's really, I feel like they really want to connect to the juggalos that do the VIP. So, plenty of time. I don't know how much time I had in there, but I felt like I had plenty of time to get out everything that I wanted to say. And we had a pretty good little conversation about Juggalo podcasts, and for better or worse, you know, goods and bads. And I thought it was a very enriching conversation. I think we're on the same page in a lot of ways, Twisted and I. And so much of this like back and forth beef bullshit that people talk about is just made up. So anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to really say about the meet and greet, was just that I had a great conversation with them, and I was very happy. Felt like I really got my time and money's worth out of the VIP, and that was it. At that point, I left and waited for the show to start. Pretty much just sat in my car and chilled out for like an hour until the show was about to start. And I didn't know any of the opening acts Even if I tried to tell you off the top of my head now, it might be tough, but I didn't know any of the opening acts going into the show besides Kissing Candace. And Kissing Candace has played The Gathering before, pretty sure. And I remember thinking that they put on a good show with The Gathering. So even though I really don't like rock, metal music, hardly at all, really, I still wanted to check them out anyway, just to see their performance. And man, see that even though I don't love their music or that kind of music, I'll give Kissing Candace hella props for looking cool as hell. And you got to expect that most of the people there at that concert probably like metal music and rock music more than I do, I assume, because I really don't like it at all. So, people there seemed to enjoy it. There was mosh pits and shit happening during Kissing Candace, and they even said from the stage, like, we know that you're not here for us. I don't remember how he put it, but it was something like that. He was just, he was like, we know that you're not here at the show for us, but we appreciate you, everyone coming out anyway. Like, I dig that. So, credit to them, Kissing Candace. Of course, Twisted, the main event of the night, crushing it, killing it. I'll say this about Twisted concerts, which I said the last time that I went to a Twisted concert as well, which was, I believe, last October. But those live drums are really awesome. And I know that there's kind of some pushback against Draven sometimes for whatever reason. But, man, those drums, that, like, takes the shit to, like, a whole new notch. Like, the music sounds really fucking good. Like, even the new Twisted songs, that have a lot of more live drums in them, obviously they're going to sound good with live drums. But the old shit, like, when they do the Most Tasteless songs and the Freak Show songs and the Green Book songs and shit with those live drums, it sounds bad fucking ass. So I'm into it. I remember when they first started experimenting with the live instruments, they had a guitar and a bass player as well, in addition to the drums, and I didn't like that. I mean, it was a fun novelty, but, like, I wouldn't want to see that more than once. Whereas the drums is like, I hope Twisted just does that forever. Like, that's just part of their show, because it's really awesome sounding, and it sets them apart from a lot of other touring acts. Not a lot of people are doing that, so that's cool. I'm into the Draven shit. I'm glad that he's there on tour with them. So, set list was, I didn't write this out beforehand, so I might be tough off the top of my head. But as far as Generation Nightmare tracks, they did Something New. They did Don't Be Hatin'. They did Magic Spells. They did Phlegm in the Windpipe. I'm not even looking at the track list right now. I'm just trying to pull off the top of my head what tracks from it they did at the show, but I haven't really talked about that album so much since it came out, and I'll just put it out there right now that it's not my favorite Twisted album or even my top 10 favorite Twisted albums, but that's cool. I'm not mad about it. They have so much great shit that I love so much and will always love that it's like they can put out a CD from time to time that I don't love. Or, I mean, even they could even put out a bunch in a row that I don't like, and I wouldn't be mad about it. I don't care. I'll still go to their show and check out all their music as it comes out. But, yeah, as far as that CD goes, as long as people like it, I'm not going to be a dickhead and say that it sucks. I'm just going to say it's not the Twisted album I'm going to keep reaching for again and again, the way that I do with Most Tasteless and Freak Show and Mirror Mirror, Wicked, Heartbroken and Homicidal, and the Green Book. Believe me, there's plenty in the Twisted catalog to keep me happy for the rest of my life. So I'm not going to shit on Generation Nightmare. I'm just saying I could take it or leave it. So it's definitely got a few tracks that I'll carry with me, but for the most part, that's more or less my review of that. So they did a good number of those songs at the show, but Can't be mad at that when it's called the Generation Nightmare Tour. It's like, you should expect that. So that's fine. And they did do old tracks. They did Die Motherfucker Die. Fuck yeah. They did We Don't Die, of course. That was the closer. You gotta fucking do that one. And now it's like closer status, because now that's considered like an old school song. So there was some crowd pleasers in there. Everyone seemed to be having a great time. I'll give a shout out to the Juggalo I saw in the audience in the Fearless Fred Fury t-shirt, because that just goes to show that all this war, back and forth beef bullshit is just bullshit. No one was giving that guy a hard time. I gave him props on his awesome shirt. Fearless Fred Fury fucking blam right in your face on this dude's t-shirt. No one gave a shit. So forget all that fucking back and forth beef and bullshit. Twisted concerts are fucking fun. I've been having a fun ass time at Twisted concerts as long as I've been a Juggalo. Pretty much. The first Juggalo concert I ever went to was the Mirror Mirror tour. And that was just a few years after I first became a Juggalo to begin with. So damn nearly my entire Jugga life has been filled with awesome times at Twisted concerts. So I'm not going to stop going. Next thing I wanted to talk about, Forgottan Freshness 6. This is going down at the Fearless Fred Fury Fest Tour VIP. It includes a new ICP CD, Forgottan Freshness 6. And people have already been putting that onto YouTube, of course. So I listened to that at my earliest convenience. That was just a little over a week ago, I think. So let me get into this a little bit. Starts with an intro by Legs Diamond, a tour intro. That's pretty much standard fare for Forgottan Freshness lately. Next track, These Walls Will Fall. This is an interesting one because it's the beat from the Killjoy Club song Ghetto Blaster. So that's a really awesome song on the Reindeer Games album, and one of the best beats, I think, one of my favorite beats on that whole album. So I dig it. It's one of the stronger, totally unreleased tracks on Forgottan Freshness 6. Probably why it's the lead track. Next song, Swings and Chops. This was one of the songs from the Big Ballas giveaway CD. So we've heard that before. Can't End Myself is the next track, and this was featured on Hell's Cellar. So that's one that we've all heard by now. Fat Sweaty Betty Celluloid Bubble Mix. This is a song that has also been floating around online for a long fucking time, so most everyone has heard that by now, but it hasn't made it onto Forgottan Freshness until now. Walk It Out, next track. See, this is where I think things are a little bit interesting, because it used to be that Forgottan Freshness was just ICP tracks that didn't make it on to the album that they were recorded for. This Walk It Out track is clearly just the scratch track for Blaze's Dead Man Walking. And you can tell from listening to it that it was always intended to be a Blaze song, because he, BLAZE, whatever. I mean, there's references to Blaze in there. Dead Man Walking. I mean, it's pretty much all about Blaze. And the lyrics in this version are exactly the same. And it even says in the Gang Rags booklet that Dead Man Walking was written by Violent J, so clearly what we have here is just a scratch track, never intended to be put out as an ICP song, but they're really digging deep on Forgottan Freshness. It's hard to find stuff that hasn't been heard, so they're reaching for things like that now. But I dig it. I like hearing that kind of stuff. Don't expect to be bumping that one if you don't like the Blaze version. It's exactly the same as the Blaze version, but Violent J singing it. Next track, Confessions Alternate Mix. This is an interesting one. It's got Shaggy on it, so that's weird. That's something that, as far as I know, had never been heard before. Not sure. I hadn't heard it. Next track, Walk On By. Totally unreleased, to my knowledge, until now. It's a Violent J solo track, I think. Fuck. If I'm wrong on that, then leave me an angry tweet. But I didn't really dig this song. Not really sure what it was recorded for. I wish I had the booklet. Usually Forgottan Freshness will tell you all the inside information on the booklet. So I'm coming at this from a purely objective point of view. I don't have any inside information until I get my hands on that physical CD. Didn't really love the song Walk On By. It was a little bit corny. If I had to guess, I would say it was a newer recorded song, possibly for Karma Forest. I don't know. Next track, Hose. See, I bet people are going to tell you that this has been released before because it's on the ICP Incredible Collection. But this version, Hose, has a different hook than that one. It's still Shaggy on the hook, but it's totally different. Way worse. Already not a very good song. This version is even worse, if you ask me. The version on the Incredible Collection was called Cream Filling, and it had a totally different hook. So some people might think that this was a rehash, but as far as I know, totally unreleased. Next track, Mr. Clean. This I know is a Devereaux track. This was released as a Big Ballers single for the Big Ballers party last year, so everyone's already heard that one before. The Neighbors Are Fighting Next Door mix. This is another really interesting track. It's The Neighbors Are Fighting from The Marvelous Missing Link Lost, but it's totally different. And that's probably one of the stupidest songs on The Marvelous Missing Link Lost because it's just so simple. There's only like one rhyme per verse or close to it. It's very stripped down. It's very simple. It always seemed like kind of a pointless filler track to me. Now, here we see on Forgottan Freshness 6 that there's a better version of this song out there. Not only did it not make the album, but it didn't even make the Missing Link Outtakes album. The one weird thing about this version of the song, to me, if I had to put on my criticism hat, is that the characters in the song are Jay and Shaggy, which is like, why would Jay and Shaggy be fighting? I know maybe that's a nitpick, but it just didn't really make a lot of sense for the story of the song to me. Like, why not just pick two made-up names? But that aside, it's still one of the stronger entries in Forgottan Freshness 6, both for being a good song and just for being an interesting song, given that it's an alternate version of an already released song. But yeah, that's a good one. Taking It Away is the next track. See, this one's interesting too, in that people are going to tell you it already came out on Hell's Cellar. Well, it did. Taking It Away, which, by the way, uses the same beat and a similar hook as Axe Murder Boy's song Taking It Away. But I thought Violent J's version on Hell's Cellar was way better than the A and B song. Like, I like that song a lot. That's one of the best ones on Hell's Cellar, Taking It Away. The version here on Forgottan Freshness 6 is a little bit different because it has Shaggy on the hook, and it's not as good. And he's just singing it weird. I don't know. It's just like, you hear a song one way, you get used to it. That's the way you like it. That's the way I like it. Go back and listen to it. Listen to Taking It Away on Hell's Cellar and Taking It Away on Forgottan Freshness 6, and you'll hear that the hook is different. And also, Shaggy has an intro on this version. So I don't know what is up with that. It was a carryover in the first place from Hell's Pit, so I don't know. It's a little bit different on FF6, but I'll prefer the Hell's Cellar version myself. Next song, The Swarm. This is an alternate version of The Smog. This is a song also that had been floating around the internet for quite a while, so everyone's already heard that. Next track, Found You. This is a scratch track from a Zug Island song, a good Zug Island song. One of the new Zug Island tracks that was added to the Toxicology compilation that came out. There was a Best of Zug Island CD that came out on Psychopathic, and it included a couple of new songs. One of them was this, I Found You. And on Forgottan Freshness 6, we have what would appear to me to be the scratch track to that song. They put out a similar type of song on the Willoughby Rags Magical Bag of Poop CD that came out at the Gathering last year. That had the scratch track for Always, another Zug Island song. or it could have even just been a Violent J version. I don't know if it was necessarily a scratch track, but here we have another Zog Island song sung by Violent J that, as far as I know, has never been released before until now. So that's fun. Next track, Please Don't Hate Me original mix. Now, this one jumped out at me when I listened to Forgottan Freshness 6 the first time, thinking it sounded pretty awesome. Someone pointed out to me that it had already been released before, so I put that into YouTube and came up with it from a couple of years ago. It had, in fact, been put out a couple of years ago. It sounded to me like it was Mikey Clark that was putting it out on some kind of radio show or something, but either way, Please Don't Hate Me original mix has come out before. I either didn't hear it or I totally forgot it. You know, that happens sometimes. I listen to so much random shit, can't possibly remember it all, I guess, but either way, I don't know if I had never heard it before or forgot it, but this time around it jumped out at me and I liked it a lot. It reminds me of the original Love Song off Ringmaster. It's Please Don't Hate Me original mix. It had a real throwback, old school kind of vibe to it. And then the final track, Best Friend. This comes from Violent J's Brother EP. That EP is pretty good, and the Best Friend song is my favorite track off that EP. So pretty much any way you slice it, Forgottan Freshness 6 is a winner to me because it includes that awesome Best Friend song. So yeah, a lot of people are saying that we've all heard all this shit before, but I would argue that some of you aren't listening closely enough because a lot of these tracks are more different than you might have thought if you weren't really listening super closely the first time you heard them. So I like it. Forgottan Freshness 6. I look forward to getting mine when I go to the ICP VIP myself. But I think that pretty well wraps up this episode. You can find all my social media and shit on murdermayhemshow.com. Twitter is where I spend most of my time. There's also Facebook, Instagram, that good shit. So peep all that out. Until next time.